Hello everyone, I'm Mariela Condorena. Thank you all for finding time and visiting today's webinar, Better Feedback for Better Learning. Before we start, we want to invite you to our network on Facebook. You can join us on Facebook. We have more than 18,000 members. Join us on WhatsApp. We have more than 3,000 teachers here. On YouTube, we have 2,500 subscribers, or you can visit our Google site. Maybe you can join us our new channels on Twitter and TikTok. Now, before we start, let me explain how you can talk to us during this webinar. Please first type your questions in the comment section. Don't forget that, please. The answers to your questions and comments will be replied by our guest speaker at the end of the webinar in the question time section. And then, when finishing the webinar, we will share a link for you to have access to the exit ticket, which will be available for 15 minutes, okay? Remember that, please. Now it's time to know our guest speaker, about our speaker. Please, maybe Mr. Ruben Rumi, could you introduce her, please?
Hello. Thank you, Mariela. Of course, it is an honor to introduce one of our favorite speakers in our community. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to present Miss Oyola. You know, Kritel Oyola is a great friend of the community. She's an experienced English teacher who holds a master's degree in education with a concentration in curriculum design. She's also the general manager of Funglish, who participated in the design of the national curriculum for basic education and in the English program. So today, the topic for this webinar is better feedback for better learning. We are going to identify the key elements when giving feedback. We are also going to make use of feedback strategies for common goals. And finally, we have to learn how to design standardized instruments for giving feedback. So thank you, Ms. Kritel Oyola, for being here with us. The audience is all yours.
Thank you, Ruben. Thank you for the warm welcome. And thank you for recognizing how close I am to the community. I'm really happy to be here with you and share a little bit of what I can share with you. I don't know if I'm able to share my screen right now. No yet. Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so let's start right away. As Ruben was saying, today the webinar is a better feedback for better learning. Actually, I was like very enthusiastic when I was designing this video conference for today. But I noticed that there are some very important points that I would like to cover deeply, and maybe probably we will have another opportunity to cover those points fully. Yeah, because I noticed that there are a lot of things to cover today. So let's try to do our very best to cover it, okay? Remember that, as usual, I will be playing in Kahoot as well. So if you can open both, not only Facebook or YouTube to see or to follow this webinar, try to get ready with Kahoot, so we can work with both apps at the same time as usual, okay? Remember, if you cannot open Kahoot because of your connectivity or because you don't have a lot of gadgets available right now, do not worry. You can participate in the chat of Facebook, because I am with my cell phone here to reading while you are writing in Facebook and YouTube, and here and also in Kahoot. Okay, so better feedback, better learning. What are the aims for today? To identify the key elements when giving feedback. What are the important things we need to pay attention to when we are providing feedback? Second objective, learning objective, is make use of feedback strategies for common goals. We are always very concerned about how to give in right feedback when we are managing large groups, you know, like 200 students. How can we provide formative feedback with this amount of students, right? And aim number 3 is design standardized instruments for giving feedback. And as I was telling you from the very beginning, I will be doing my very best to cover all this objective as well as I can, as good as I can. But please, I am sure that I have another opportunity to cover it fully, okay? Because maybe it will not be enough for all of you. Okay, so remember I was telling you about using Kahoot? Yes, so please try to get ready with Kahoot. I will be opening my computer as well. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, so here you are. Yes, please. Click on Kahoot. Remember how to, it's www.kahoot.it, and the pin is 5639893. Okay, you can see it on the computer. 5639893. Yes, so please, I would like you to, oh, sorry for that. I would like you to click on Kahoot. Yes, and I'm waiting for you for your names. Yes. While you are getting in Kahoot, I might say hi to Huacho because Carla is getting in from Huacho. Maybe you can tell me where you're writing for. You are joining us. Yes. Okay. Mike, Kathy, Sherry, Doris are here already, so that is amazing. That is amazing. I can see people from Puno because those are the followers. From Colombia. Welcome, Colombia. That's amazing. Very good. Okay. Sue, Angela, Pamela, Nancy, Indira, welcome to Kahoot. I am waiting for some of you. Oh, the number again, don't worry, Mary. The number is 5639893. That is the number of Kahoot. Thank you, Rose. Rose is sharing the number in the chat. Yes, so please, I'm waiting for all of you. I can see people from Ayacucho as well. Welcome, Ayacucho. I had the chance to travel to Ayacucho before pandemic time, so I'm very glad to have been there before. For Philippines as well, from Argentina, for Villarrica, beautiful. Mexico, yes. From Acapulco, my goodness. We have people from different parts of the world, right? Not only from Peru, right? We're an extended family now, huh? Okay, so far we're 46 people in Kahoot. I will be waiting to be at least 100. I guess that's a very good number because we're a lot of people. We're connected to 183, almost 300. So I'm sure that we can be more people here. Hi, Gloria from Chiclayo. Yes, from Cusco. Hi, Gles. Very nice. Hi, Martin from Puno. Ceci from Chiclayo. Yes, I have been providing some webinars from to Lambayeques some weeks ago, so glad to have you here again. Pangoa from the jungle, Ayacucho, Arequipa. I do love Arequipa, it's beautiful. Okay, we're almost 70 people, so we're fine. From Cusco. Love when you are joining us. Okay. Hi, Johnny. Johnny saying hi to me. Hi, Danny from Piura. Gles is there from Jaén as well. I have to say that I'm always really motivated when I can see all of you investing your time on Saturday at this time, trying to learn more. So that's very rewarding, really. Hi, Juancita. Glad to see you here. from Huancayo, from Machu Picchu. So, okay, I guess we're 80 people, but we cannot wait longer because then it's going to be not enough time. So let's start right away, okay? Remember that if you were not able to join us on Kahoot, you can chat you can participate in the chat, okay? So what is feedback? What do you think is feedback? Yes? What do you think is feedback? Remember that at this point, you are able to type your answer, yes? So please tell me, what is feedback for you? What do you think is feedback? Yes? Yeah, I can see many teachers, but teachers, remember now the question is, what is feedback? So I would like you to participate in the chat by answering me the question, okay? Okay. Yeah, but what is the concept? What does it mean? What does it imply? I mean, what feedback implies, yes? Okay, let's see. You only have 8 answers. Assessment. Okay, Sari is telling me that feedback is related to assessment. Okay, some of you are translating the word, which is fine, but I would like you to give me more clues. What does it imply? Okay, maybe review. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, what do you think feedback is? Okay, some of you are relating feedback with assessment. Yes, it's a review, it's a devolution. Some of you are using Spanish, so that's fine. Okay, so far we have like, wow, 27 answers. Let's see, what are your responses? Reinforce, okay, that's good. Okay, let's see. We got 37, 37, 30, 39, 40. Okay, you are still answering. Okay, let's see. Okay, 41 answers, 42. Okay, let's see. Okay. Okay, let's see what feedback is. Some of you have been saying, oh, sorry for that. Sorry for that. No. Okay, wait a minute. My mistake. Okay, I'm going to the next part. Sorry, my computer is getting too excited right now. Okay. Please wait a bit for me. What is feedback? Yes, we're on that part. So let's see. Okay, some of you are telling me feedback is retroalimentación. Yeah, that's very right. But I would like you to tell me a little more about feedback. And what is feedback? Some of you have telling me is retroalimentación, is a review, is giving information to receive the answers. Yes, just be careful not confusing feedback with elicitation. Elicitation is when you make provoking questions, you know, when you give questions to students to give me to elicit, you know, some answers, to collect some previous knowledge. Yes, feedback is it's what you what you try to do to make your students to achieve the learning objective. It's all the activities, all the process, all the strategies you execute to help your student to achieve the learning goal. So according to Katie, feedback is best understood as a name to reduce the gap between where students are and where they are meant to be. Because when you do the diagnostic test, the diagnostic assessment, what you find is usually a starting point, yes? And based on that starting point, you design lesson objectives. So, or in this case, is the learning purpose, right? Because that's what we call it in Peru, right? El propósito de aprendizaje. So when you create your diagnostic assessment, you, based on that diagnostic, you design el propósito de aprendizaje. So this gap that you can find is students start creating their learning process, students are doing the activities, and on that process, on that experience of learning, that's the name that we call it these days, you can identify some difficulties that students can have. So all what you do to help your student to achieve the learning objective is feedback. All that you do to help your students to achieve the learning objective. Remember, it's not the correction. It's not an elicitation. Yes, it's everything that is involved on your side, on your role as teacher to help your student to achieve the learning objective. Yes, so that is feedback. Remember that. This gap that a student have from where he is, she is, from what is he or she supposed to be, all the activities and the strategies you apply to reduce the gap, that is feedback. Yes, remember that. Okay, so now get back to Kahoot, because probably some of you have been playing already because my computer, I guess it's easier to blame my computer, but actually it was me, right? Actually it was me. Okay, what I'm gonna do is, I don't know if I can play this. Okay, I'm sorry, it's my mistake. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, wait a minute. It says, to provide formative feedback, we need to understand the worksheet perfectly. Could you please answer me in the chat, because that was my mistake. I click on the Kahoot and pass on very fast. Okay, I would like to share some of the ideas you are sharing in the chat, because they are very nice. Hi, Kelisita. It says, Teodoro said, make them aware of what they know and what they don't. Okay, nice. Okay, let's see some others. Let's see if I can find. It's a process in which we guide students to find the mistakes of the task done and bring aim students in order to get the idea and create their own learning. I love that part, create their own learning. You know, it's provide this support to your students to be able to understand what is the best way for him or for her to learn. Yes, remember this, because feedback is very related to formative assessment. And when we're talking about formative assessment, we're talking about definitely competence approach. So what we need to be focused on is autonomy. Yes, autonomy, and this reflective process of learning. Yes, reflection. That is something that we need to do. Yes. Okay. So some of you are answering me this. When we are providing formative feedback, we need to understand the worksheet perfectly, because based on the worksheet, I must say if it's right, if it's wrong, based on the worksheet. Okay, many of you are saying me false, but maybe you can tell me why is it false? If we're not supposed to be focused on the worksheet, what are we supposed to be focused on? What are we supposed to be focused on when we're providing formative feedback? We are not supposed to be focused on the worksheet. So the material, remember, I will always say this. The material presented in Aprendo en Casa strategy is just an opportunity to support teachers somehow, but it's not mandatory to do what is there, because teachers are the one who make the decision, right? So if I am making a decision, okay, Antonella has said something very interesting. Antonella said, well, I have to be focused on my lesson objectives. After feedback, students are able to focus on what they don't know yet. Okay, very good, Teodoro. Okay, but remember, if I am talking about formative feedback, I need to understand what. I need to be focused on what. Do I need to be focused on the worksheet? Do I need to be focused on the activity? What am I supposed to be focused on? Could you please tell me? Maybe you can use the chat so I can read some of your responses. We need to be focused on the purpose of the lesson, said Gloria. Okay. Yes. Okay. Well, actually, many of you are totally right. Many of you are totally right. Okay. I am going to keep working on this. Remember, as we're saying that feedback is best understood as a name to reduce the gap. We were talking about two gaps. I mean, a gap. This starting point and where I am supposed to be as a student, right? So I have this gap. So if in order to provide great feedback, I need to be very aware of what is my purpose, of what is my objective. Yes, and many of you have been saying that, not only the purpose, but also the assessment criteria. Yes, the way I have these standards. Yes, these learning standards, the learning performances. Yes, in Peru we call it estándares, desempeños, you know? So we need to be focused on this, and based on this information, we start creating feedback. Remember that sometimes teachers are so exciting when we provide feedback that we are starting paying attention to every single mistake that a student did in a piece of product or in a piece of production or activity. But remember, we have to be focused on the criteria. If we are not focusing on the criteria, what we're going to do is going to provide a very overwhelming feedback, because it's going to be too much for the student to improve. Yes, remember scaffolding. We need to be focused. I mean, we need to remember scaffolding every single time. We need to dosify feedback. We need to dosify content. We need to dosify, because it's a step by step. Yes, it's not that everything at the same time. Yes. Yes, very good. Antonella has saying something very important, because Antonella is also describing the skills that we want them to improve. Yes, something very interesting that I found is Black and Williams saying that for assessment to be formative, the feedback formation has to be used. What does it mean? So all the information provided in informal or informant feedback, it's supposed for students to use it to improve. As I was saying before, when we are paying attention to every single mistake, every single error that a student has made, is too overwhelming. So that is not formative feedback, that is overwhelming feedback. So let's try to be careful with that. Focus on what you want your student to achieve, not everything. It's little by little. Yes, remember this, because this is very, very, very important. Yes. Okay, so, okay, once again, Kahoot. Okay, once again, Kahoot. Okay, I hope I don't do anything wrong again. Okay, Kahoot, one more time. Remember, question number 3, okay? Oh yeah, the number is just for the record, please, if you can help me there, please try to share the Kahoot pin. Is 5639893, just for the record. Okay, question number 3, pregunta abierta, okay? It's an open question. Give a simple example of this feedback. Give a simple example for this. Give a simple feedback for this writing. I don't know if you can read it. It's yeah, I mean, you can, if you are on Kahoot, you can read well. If you are not on Kahoot, do not worry. I will be showing you in a minute. Yes, very good, Ceci. Providing feedback, it has to be focused on what are the aims we're supposed to achieve in this learning experience. And little by little, we're supposed to make it more complex for students, right? Improve it, like making it more difficult, more complex. Yes, remember that these processes are like progressive. Yes, that's very, very important. Okay. Let's try to provide a little feedback for this writing. This is just a matter of reflection, okay? Okay, I have one answer. I am sorry, but I don't know what's going on with my Kahoot. I guess I didn't set it well. I didn't set it well. Okay, sometimes teachers want to correct everything. Yes, very good, Teodoro. Very good. Yes, sometimes I mean, teachers are like looking at the writing and are correcting every single detail. And it's like, we need to be focused on what is the most important things. And the most important thing is the criteria. And based on that, we can do other stuff. Yes. And sorry, but I don't know why I cannot see your responses. Okay, I know I cannot see in here. I don't know. Yeah, sorry for that. Don't worry. I will solve it in a minute. Okay. Okay, let's get back to this. Okay, I'm sure that you have the opportunity to see the paragraph written by Tabata. Tabata is a good example of the Carrera Pública Magisterial exam. That exam was given in 2019. Yes, was one of the version, and that is the example they provide, right? Something important that we need to remember is that when we provide feedback, there are important elements. We have, I mean, together, I mean, I guess that all of us agree on giving importance to the criteria, yes? And the criteria are the standards, the learning performances, the capacities as well, yes? But in this case, I am not really focusing on capacities because I will explain that later on, do not worry. But something important in feedback as well is to recognize the student's strength, because when we provide feedback, we need to provide also, I mean, we need to highlight the strength of our students, the things that they have done well, yes? And they have done well based on the criteria as well. I mean, it's very weird not to achieve any of the criteria when students are doing a task. If that happens, you need to evaluate if your criteria, if your standards are really responding to your students' learning needs. Maybe they are too high, maybe they are too low, yes? So remember, when we are providing feedback, we need to identify not only the mistakes, but also the strength, because the student need to feel recognized as the things that he or she has done well, yes? The other important thing that we need to remember when we are providing feedback is to see the mistake as a learning opportunity. Some students feel a little bit frustrated because they feel that they don't know English, that they can never learn English because English is too hard, English is too difficult. But remember, that is your opportunity to show your student that English is not that hard, and that mistake is not a terrible thing. It's an opportunity for him to show himself or herself that he can do things better, that she can do things better. Yes. So remember, mistakes are learning opportunities. I always say that errors are not horrors. Yes. Errors, mistakes are learning opportunities. Yes. Another important thing regarding feedback is that we as teachers not only need to identify what are the aspects students need to improve, but also we need to explain, we need to provide some strategies for students to overcome this difficulty. Yes, if we only say, okay, this is wrong, okay, but what is the mistake? Okay, maybe we have to create some reflective questions, you know? So do you think that this present perfect or this present simple in question is well used? Is it correct? What do you think about it? Have you considered the auxiliary verbs in your questions? Yes, I don't know. I mean, these reflective questions are opportunities for students to reflect on their learnings, but we need to model these strategies for students' reflection. Yes, for example, making questions is a strategy as well for students. Or maybe if the student is having some difficulties on getting on I don't know, like being focused on the purpose, maybe the student is going to be better for the student to use an organizer, to use an outline. So it is always focusing, okay, this is my main idea, and based on my main idea, I have to talk about this and this and this. I am not supposed to talk about anything else, anything different to this. Yes, so you are supposed to provide some tools for students to later on be able to do it by herself. Yes, that's a little bit of the general tips I can give you. Remember, first of all, we need to really understand the criteria. If we are not fully understanding the criteria, we are not supposed to provide great feedback. If we are still thinking that a writing is basically focused on grammar, that is because you are not really understanding what is the competence-based approach. So be careful with that. Second, remember, you are supposed to highlight also the strength of your students, the things that he or she has done well on the product, on the production, on the performance. Third, see the mistake as an opportunity. Remember that, okay, this is a mistake, but what can you learn from this? Yes, that is part of the metacognition as well. Yes, and the third one is to provide some modeling, to provide some strategies, to provide some techniques. Yes, when we're talking about reading, for example, you can teach your student how to identify the main ideas, how to make this difference between main ideas and supportive ideas. Maybe you can use one line and double line for supportive ideas. There are many other ideas you can use. I mean, there are plenty of examples for this. Yes, so these are the key elements for providing feedback. Remember, feedback is not only saying is right, is wrong, cross or check. We are supposed to provide all these descriptions. Yes, let's try to give an example. Some minutes ago, I just showed you an example from the Carrera Pública Magisterial exam. Let's try to use that very same example right now. So let's see what we can do. So here we have Jimena is a teacher, yes, and this teacher has requested to her students to write an email inviting a person to visit the student to spend New Year, yes, and Tabata has written this. Hi, Leonardo, how is Canada? How is you? Last year, my mother cooked in New Year's Eve. She cooked delicious. We has turkey, potatoes, vegetables, chocolate, chicha. I liked it, and my mom were happy. In 2018, we will have food, drinks, gift, music. Come visit me in New Year Eve. See you. Greetings from Peru, Tabata. Yes, I am sure that many of you are, my goodness, how is you? Where are the commas? Yes, maybe some of you are like, is this right? Yes, but remember, we need to understand very well the criteria. Yes, this is a piece of writing. We are working on the competence-based approach. We are not working with the linguistic approach. So let's try to be careful with that. Yes, we need to be focusing on the whole thing. Yes, the whole process. So here we are. In the exam, the teacher provide this feedback to Tabata. It says, dear Tabata, there are some problems in your writing. Check verb agreement, spelling, and punctuation, please. Write a new version of your email and hand it in to me next week. You can do it better. Yes? Okay. I know that we have several, we have three options, and probably we already know what is the answer because this is a very null exam. And have you been preparing yourself for the exam? I'm sure that you know what the answer is. But besides that, I would like you to reflect on this feedback, because this, and I am sure as a teacher, I have to do my mea culpa, because I have to admit that maybe once I have been provided a similar feedback. Dear Tabata, there are some problems in your writing. So the teacher is not recognizing any strength, any Tabata's strength. So Tabata, as soon as she started reading this, she might have cried, right? because it's okay, it's just problems in my writing. There is nothing right in my writing. So that's very disappointed, right? And do you think that Tabata will be like encouraged to create a new paragraph? Maybe not. Yes. So remember, we need to see our students' strength firstly. Secondly, the opportunities. We're not supposed to tell problems. We're going to say opportunities to improve. Yes. Remember, be careful with. We're not supposed to say mistakes, errors, problems to our students because that is very discouraging. Yes. So next it says check verb agreement. I am wondering if a student will understand what verb agreement means. Isn't that too technical? Is it like for teachers? Yes. So remember, using these technical words might be very difficult to your students unless you had the time to explain them every single element for this feedback, right? But I don't think so. Yes. So remember, verb agreement is going to be better to go back to the writing and make probably like making a circle to explain where is like need to improve, what are the parts that needs to be improved, and based on that maybe write verb agreement like VA and create like a legend. Yes, because there are some like some abbreviations for writing correction. Yes, so maybe we can use some of them. Spelling, which word is misspelled? I don't know. I mean, if the student has made a mistake, it's because the student doesn't know. Nobody makes a mistake for granted. I mean, it's like, I want to make mistakes in my homework because it's fun. Yes, we are not supposed to make mistake on purpose. Yes, we make mistakes because we don't know. So you need to guide your student. You need to make circles. You need to identify. And this mistake is spelling. And this mistake is punctuation. And provide some clues. Verb agreement. Are you using present simple correctly? Are you using simple past correctly? Yes, maybe you can help with this. Yes, write a new version of your email and hand it to me next week. You can do it better. You can do it better, it's fine, but you can do it better is like before saying some problems, it's like not that encouraging, right? Some of you are writing me the answer. I'm sorry if you can say it well. I'm extremely sorry. I did my very best to make it, to enlarge it. And that is why I'm reading. I hope that you can understand a little bit. Well, it says, considering the teacher's purpose of giving the students constructive feedback, which of the following criticism is appropriate? Letter A, the teacher has given a shallow feedback. She should have given examples of the error the student make. Letter B, the teacher has mainly corrected mechanics. She should have focused on the purpose of task instead. Letter C, the teacher has used complex language. She should have used familiar words so that the student understands the feedback easily. So which of the following criticism is appropriate to the feedback given by Jimena, who's the teacher, right? Well, letter B said the teacher has given a shallow feedback. She should have given examples. The other one is corrected just mechanics and should have focused on the purpose of task. And the last one is have it used familiar words so the student understand the feedback easily. Remember, when we were saying what are the key elements for feedback, we were saying that the criteria is very important because the criteria is focused on the learning purpose. So when we're focusing on the errors, when we're focusing on the style of the writing, it's not enough. When we teachers are providing feedback, we always need to be focused on the criteria and on the purpose of the task, on the purpose of learning. ¿Cuál es el propósito de aprendizaje? That is the most important thing. When we establish, when we design the criteria is based on the propósito de aprendizaje. If we're talking about the situation, the meaningful situation is based on el propósito de aprendizaje. If we are talking about the product, the production, the performance of the student, that is related to el propósito de aprendizaje. So the most important part when you are providing feedback is the purpose. So the teacher is just focusing on spelling, punctuation, agreement. But when we're talking about writing, are we talking about mechanics? Are we talking about convenciones de lenguaje? Solamente puntos, comas y gramática? Deletrear? It's just that? Writing is that? Is that a reflection for you? What our national curriculum says? How many capacities the writing has? What is the description of the standard? Does the standard describe something only describing verb agreement, grammar, spelling, mechanics, just that, or not? So the answer in this case, just because is the most important thing we need to be focused on is the purpose of the learning experience. The purpose of the learning experience is letter B. So letter B is the right answer. Remember this, okay? When we're providing feedback, something that we do need to forget ever and ever is the purpose, yes? If we have this in our mind, everything is going to be fine. Remember, the purpose, the learning purpose, el propósito de aprendizaje is always related to the competency. In this case, the competency is writing. If you are talking about writing, we're talking about 4 capacities. How many performances? What are they describing? Are they describing only mechanics? Are they describing some more other stuff? Yes? So remember, these are the things we need to evaluate a little bit if we were a little bit confused on the right answer of this question. Yes? But do not worry, we're here to learn. For example, here it says, Dear Tabata, there are some problems in your writing. The verb agreement, spelling, punctuation. Write some other version. But we have, look at this. We have 4 capacities. Adapts the text. Organize and develops idea coherently and cohesively. Use conventions of reading language appropriately. Reflect on and evaluate the form, content, and context of the written test. Mechanics, mechanics is covering the 4 capacities, just one of them. Be careful with that. When we are providing feedback, we have to keep in mind the competence. We are not mutilating the competence. I always said that, right? I don't know if Englishers remember hashtag no a la mutilación de la competencia. I don't know if you remember that. But we are supposed to work, to see the production, the performance of our students as a whole. Yes, we are not mutilating capacities. We are not mutilating things. Yes, we're supposed to see it as a whole. So, okay, Kritel, you are telling me that I am supposed to see all the capacities and I have the writing of my students, but how can I do that? It's very difficult. What am I supposed to adapt the text? It's too big. Yeah, remember, when I was telling you about understand the criteria, I was telling you that the capacity, it's a clue, but what give you your track is going to be the performance. Yes? So let's see. The learning performances, actually here, I adapted a little bit to the task, to Jimena's task as a teacher. Yeah, so the learning performances based on the national curriculum, it says adapts the text. She or he writes in English to communicate situations considering the purpose. What is the purpose in this writing? Inviting someone to visit you. And the intended audience. What is the audience? A friend. I wonder if Tabata fulfilled this capacity. What do you think? Yes or no? Tell me in the chat, okay? Tell me in the chat. Number 1, I will read it again, okay? Yes, of course, but remember, we have 4 different capacities, yes? And when we are evaluating based on the competence approach, we are not supposed to provide feedback only from one part of the whole competence because we are mutilating, yes? Okay, so one more time, I read it. Adapts the text she or he writes in English to communicate the situation considering the purpose. What is the purpose? Inviting someone to visit you and the intended audience, a friend. Try to remember, she did it or not? Some of you are answering me. Thank you, Carmen. Thank you, Lulu. Thank you, Marcelo. You are saying yes. Yes, actually she did right. So maybe the best first comment should have been that, right? Dear Tabata, you fulfill the purpose. You invite someone to New Year Eve party, yes? And you did use an informal letter because it's for your friend. That might be a very strong point from that Tabata has, right? How about the second capacity or the second performance? Write text in English about a topic with coherence, cohesion, and fluency appropriate to his level. Remember the level. I might say that the level here is like an A1, right? I don't think it's a little bit more. Organizes his ideas to establish logical relationships. In this case, they are talking about connections, yes? So, yeah, addition, adds information relevant to using appropriate vocabulary. In this case, maybe can be holidays or can be like activities, yes? Because they are like describing what they are going to do on this New Year Eve, yes? So let's try to analyze. Does it have coherence? It has a logical order, it flows, or it's like to cut, you know, when you read the text, there are too many periods, different ideas from one sentence to another one. Cohesion is the student using connections like and, like for, like but. Is the student organizing the ideas well? I mean, it's like the greeting, the body, the conclusion is respecting the order, yes. And how about the last one? Uses some writing convention, chooses basic spelling and grammar resources. For example, that is something that Jimena is very focusing on, right? Verb agreement, spelling, punctuation, and that is great. But we have 4 performances. And from the 4 performances, this teacher has provided feedback only for one of the 4, and it's not enough. We need to cover all of them because we are oriented to the competency-based approach. Yes, based approach. So remember, okay, so Kritel, I am understanding. If I want to provide a better feedback, I need to be focused on my criteria. My criteria is oriented by the standards, by the capacity, by the learning performances, because in the learning performances, I have the elements, right? The important elements that I need to evaluate if they are using it well or not, right? So in this case, for example, in the first one, we have the purpose. Yes, the purpose is the language function. I am inviting, am I persuading, am I describing, am I giving directions? Yes, and the intended audience. What is the audience? A friend, my principal, my mother, my mayor? Who am I talking to? Because the audience is going to tell me if it's going to be formal or informal, yes? The other one related to coherence, cohesion, fluency, yes, when the ideas flows very well, yes, when they're not like very cut ideas, you in one sentence write one thing and in the next one is very different to the first one, and the third one is very different to the second one and the first one, yes. It's supposed that the idea should be flow, should complement one another, right? And how can we provide cohesion in a paragraph? Using the adverbs, right? The connectors. And but for, in this case, I guess that will be right. If we have a higher level, we can use however, we can use nevertheless, besides that, on the contrary. Yes, there are some like different levels of connectors, right? And the conventions, what we are usually teachers focus on, but remember, that is a very traditional way. And our students do not necessarily are competent writers when they are just focused on grammar. They need to understand that coherence and cohesion is actually, from my experience, is the most important thing. Yes, is the most important thing. So let's try to keep analyzing. Do not worry about this. So just to remembering a little bit of the digamos, sorry, remember some of the important tips I was providing you before. What is the most important tip? To full understanding of the criteria. We need to understand the standard. We need to understand the learning performances. And Kritel, I don't understand. We're seeing the learning performances deeply and the capacities, but what do we need? The standards. What are the standards important in this part of the feedback? Because remember, the standard is where you want to achieve. The learning performance is a short-term goal. Your standard is your long-term goal. So as you are working based on the competence approach, you need to see what is going to be your final destination. Yes, so you need to see the standard, you need to see the performance, because the performance is your short goal, right? Your short-term goal, but the standard is a long one. So you need to make this comparison, and you need to see what is going to be the way to achieve this long-term goal. Yes, because it's not only to pay attention to what do they need right now. Recognize the student's strength. Remember, when we see the competence, we will always find something the student can do well. Yes, very good, Viviana. Standard give us a goal. Yes, very good. So remember, we need to encourage our students, and to be encouraging when providing feedback, is important to see the positive side of their product, their performance, their production. Yes, if we don't do that, it's very discouraging. So please be very careful with that. Tip number 3, see the mistake as a learning opportunity. Look at this. Look at this. There is something there. I guess that is not right. Okay, this is a spelling. Check. What is the mistake? So the student is not seeing his or her own mistake as something terrible, something that destroy his or her self-esteem, but he or she sees the mistake as an opportunity to research, to like a challenge, it's like, okay, this is wrong, really? Why is it wrong? And start Google it and start looking up in the dictionary. Yeah, so let's try to always present these mistakes, these errors of our students as an opportunity for learning. Yes. And remember, because this is very important, we need to provide some strategies. Providing some reflective questions are also strategies, because the student is learning how to reflect. I mean, my reflection has to be oriented to what? When I'm writing grammar, I have to orient it to what kind of question? If I am talking about cohesion, my question has to be oriented to what? Yes, so remember this. Provide strategies to your students to overcome the difficulties, because it's a way to training them to be autonomous in their learning process. And that is the competence-based approach. Yes? Okay, so I won't go to Kahoot anymore because it's going to be very confusing. So it says, feedback strategy for common goals. Yes, we have been talking about feedback. We have been talking about these important tips, criteria. Do not forget the learning performances, but do not forget the standard. Learning performances is now. Standards is the long-term goal. Do not forget to be encouraging to your students. Try to highlight the positive aspect of his or her production and performance. Remember to to make them see make them see their mistakes and errors as a learning opportunity. And for sure, number four, is, I'm sorry, I forgot. Okay, yes, this triadies that the students might need for their autonomy. Yes, when you teach your student how to create his or her own reflective questions when analyzing, when revising their writing, is a very powerful tool, because then they will be able to revise seeing in that way. Yes, so that is why it's very, very important. Yes. Yeah, for sure. We are supposed also to encourage them to provide feedback. But remember, to provide peer feedback, students need to understand the criteria perfectly as well. Yes, so that is something we're going to see now. Do not worry about it. Yes, so feedback strategies for common goals. What is the first thing we need to do when we want to provide feedback? Select realistic criteria. Sometimes when we are like using the learning performances o los desempeños from our national curriculum, what we usually do is, okay, as I can see like 5 elements, because it's adapt the text to the audience, the purpose, the context, and we mention like 3 elements. This is going to be too hard for students to understand. Remember, you need to dosify, because it's part of the scaffolding. Yes. Okay, just make a little interruption. It's like, if you're having some problems or connectivity, do not worry, because we are recording this video and you can watch it later on. Okay, so do not worry about it. You just keep trying. Yes. Okay, so remember, selecting realistic criteria is very important, because we are dosifying what they are learning. And remember that if you have like 4 different elements in your performances to cover, my recommendation is maybe in the first part of the year, you can cover 2 of them. And as soon as they accomplish those 2 elements, you can move on to the other 2 and forget the 2 first ones. Yes, so that is more achievable for them. Exactly, very good, Charles. It's achievable criteria, realistic one, because it is not going to be overwhelming, not only for students, but also for teachers. Yes, because sometimes we feel frustrated when our students are not going well in our classes. Yeah, so try to be very realistic. The second one, use technology. I know that many of us have been forced to learn technology during this pandemic time. But for example, one of my best friends is Excel. Excel, which is very easy, it's not complicated, it's not even online. So have it internet or not, I can use it very well, because Excel led me to create some graphics, led me to manage different elements, and can help me to systematize the information from 200 students. Yes, and that can be a great ally when you are providing feedback, when you are trying to make some pedagogical decisions on your sessions. And number 3, identify the common mistakes and design strategies for them. Something that I sometimes have been saying in different webinars is, for example, if we're talking about writing, you maybe can identify that your students have some problems or on focusing on the purpose, for example, and they start talking about the party and they end the text writing about potatoes. Yeah, that's very common. So if you had that problem, something that can be very useful is to use organizers. So why don't you design a strategy for students to use organizers? I mean, try to be very pushy with this. Try to encourage your students to do organizers, to keep in mind their purpose all the times when they are writing. So they organize their ideas first, and every single phrase or idea that they put on their organizer is going to be related to the purpose. So when they write and develop the writing, it's going to be less likely to forget the purpose. Yes, because they are very focused on that, because they have the organizer. So remember, when you identify a common mistake, try to make up with a strategy that can help most of your students. And how can you identify these common mistakes for big groups? use technology. Remember that. Graphics in Excel are very, very useful. Yes. And the last one is, if you notice that your students are having some mistakes based on feedback, you are providing feedback, you are monitoring their work, and you notice that they are not really achieving their goal. So remember, pedagogical decisions. You need to redesign your criteria. You need to redesign your learning experiences, because remember, flexibility is one of the main features of curriculum. Yes, so your planning has to respond to your students' necessity, to your students' learning needs. Yes, so do not forget this. If your students are having problems, besides your feedback, besides all your support, besides you are teaching them techniques, strategies, you are monitoring them, and it's not achievable for them, redesign. It's not bad. You are dosifying, you are making pedagogical decisions. Exactly, Charles again, reflect on and adjust. Don't forget that. Yes? Okay, so let's move on to this part, because actually I was like having some concerns about sharing this with you, because I was a little bit worried if I will have enough time for this. So let's see what we can do in this part. This is learning performances. And what I have done is like trying to systematize this information. And what I have done is like dividing, remember, just to explain you how to do it, dividing a little bit the criteria and trying to giving to you some examples of how you might be able to provide feedback to big groups. Yes. So for example, here we have the learning performance, and you have a group. Well, English teachers, we usually have like three different classroom of the same content to be covered, right? Sometimes the same level of English. In Peru, for example, what we are doing is working from levels A1, A2, pre-A1. Yes. So if you have like 8 groups of pre-A1 and you do this, it's going to be very useful, because instead of having different groups with different feedback, what you are doing is like a standardized. And if you can see that most of the time the student is getting number 1, you need to monitor this student closely. Yes. So let's try to see the example. Okay. Number 1, the first capacity is adapts the text she or he writes in English to communicate the situation considering the purpose and the intended audience. What I have done in here is to just take only the purpose and insert it. Yes, so I am paying attention if the student is adapting the text to the purpose. What is the purpose? Inviting someone to visit you. So if the student accomplished, what I have done is to take it to the performance. Yes, the learning performance for the national curriculum, I just take it and put it in here in English. You have fully adapted the text to the purpose of inviting someone to visit you. Well done. In number 2 is developing, which is in process. So you have somehow adapted the text to the purpose of inviting someone to visit you. Strategy. Remember to keep the purpose in mind all the time. I suggest revising your email before handing it in. Yes, so I'm like giving some ideas at the same time. Number 1, remember that you need to adapt the text to the purpose of inviting someone to visit you. I recommend you to use an organizer to keep it in mind. Use some of the phrases learned. I would like to, da, 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 da. So here I am like selecting number 1 is the beginning. Number 2 is developing, sorry for the misspell. And number 3 is accomplish. Yes. So what I do, and I'm going to show you in some minutes, do not worry about it because I have the Excel open. What I do is to create this tiny chart that you can work in a group of teachers. I mean, if you are 2-3 teachers with the same level, with the same learning experience, you can work together. Yes. And create this. This is only for the purpose. You might need another description for the audience, and the student can receive a very specific, Yes, a very specific feedback, but according to everyone's level. Yes. So let's see. For example, here I have this. This is my purpose. And for example, I have Tabata, who is the student who wrote the paragraph in the Carrera Pública Magisterial exam, right? So here we have Tabata, for example, for me, Tabata is number 2, developing, yes? Because she finally invites someone to her New Year's Eve party, which is fine. But I mean, there are some parts that are not quite clear, right? So you have somehow adapted the test to the purpose of inviting someone to visit you. Remember to keep the purpose in mind all the time, yeah? But actually here is like something missing in here because I changed it a little bit, but I did it on purpose because I want to show you how to do it from the Excel. It says, remember to keep the purpose in mind all the time. I suggest revising your email before handing in. Yes, that is the Tabata for feedback. How about Kritel? Remember that you need to adapt the test to the purpose of inviting someone to visit you. I remember you to use an organizer to keep it in mind. So what I'm doing is to that a number to each student, and the Excel is going to work immediately. So it's going to be very easy for me to do this matching. And as soon as I have all the elements, what I can do for my student to give formal feedback is just to copy all the text, because Excel is wonderful. Maybe we might have maybe some webinar regarding Excel, right? To create this. It might be very, very nice. And you can choose copy all the feedback for Tabata and then put it in one Word, and then it's done, right? It's done for Tabata receiving a very specific feedback with some strategies, with some techniques. And if you have 200 students, you are responding to your students' needs and providing them very effective feedback. Yes, very effective feedback. So before going to this part, I would like to showing you, let me see. Okay, I'm going to erase this part. Actually, this is just an example. This is only an example. Yes. I'm pretty sure that you can make it better. Here, I am showing you the Excel. I create this only 3 levels of the descriptors. You can create one more level if you want, because we have C, B, A, and AD. So it's fine if you want to insert one more level. That's going to be very, very fine. So my recommendation is this. If you have this, what you can do is to assign a number and then create a whole formula for you to immediately match, because that's possible. For me, actually, sometimes it's easier to, okay, Tabata is number 1, number 2, number 2. Okay, so I choose, okay, well, I will do it again. I will choose, I have to write an equal in here. Yes, equal. Then I click on the right descriptor. Tabata is not beginning, is developing, is not accomplished. So I click on here and then enter. And that's all, you see? And Tabata has her feedback. Yes. How about Kritel? Kritel is, for me, is a beginning. It's the beginning. It's like level 1. So once again, I will say this in Spanish so you will fully understand. Súper sencillo. Lo único que hago es poner un igual. Después hago clic sobre la celda donde está descrito y pongo enter y ya está. You see, that is why Excel is very useful when we are providing assessment. When we're working with assessment, it's very useful to use Excel. How about Inti? Actually, I'm sorry, but Inti is my puppy, but he was here close to me, so I decided to use his name as an example. So now is letter C because he has accomplished the task. I mean, this element of the task. And you have fully adapted the test to the purpose of inviting someone to visit you. Well done. Yes. And look at this. For example, here I have also the audience. And then I might need to analyze the other elements in the other performances. Learning performances, and I will be extracting and describing. Remember, that is why it's so useful to work in groups, to create this community as teachers, this teachers community, to work together, to help each other, because there is no need to work as an island. Yes, because as you can see, this task is not an easy thing to do. It's not very fast. You have to be careful. You have to identify the elements. You have to select very well what is going to be these progressive elements. So in order to do it well, it's always useful to work together. Yes, try to work collaboratively. Yes, I choose to have written an article saying learning experiences only for students. We need to, as teachers, feel this experience of teaching as well. Yes, I mean, this learning experience for teaching, something like that, right? It's like we are learning to teach as a whole beautiful experience, working collaboratively, yes, and autonomously, yes. So remember, my recommendation is to create these Excel charts, which are going to be very useful. You might see that it's going to be very easy to provide feedback to all your 200 students when you have these kind of tools with you. What I want to do now is to, let's try to do this, because I would like you to, now I'm going to do something like testing you. So please pay attention to your, I will be paying attention to your comments in the chat. Yeah, so here we are. I was telling you that these are the learning performances, and I have identified the purpose and the audience, right? And for example, you have fully achieved, you have fully adapted the text to the purpose of inviting someone to visit you. Yes. How about a friend? You have fully adapted the text to the intended, to your intended audience, who is your friend. Parentheses, probably informal style, yes? And then you create the other descriptors in groups, yes? How about the capacity number 2? Yes? Okay. Oh, something that you need to remember is like, yeah, maybe Rosa, for one of your teachers, for one of our teachers who is participating in the tests, I guess Tabata is number 1. Okay, maybe it's number 1. We go back. Remember that this evaluation is like not that rigid. That might depend on the level. For example, for me, I'm considering that Tabata is A1. And for an A1 level, I guess that the thing is that she has been using different tenses of grammar. So that is why it was so confusing. Yes, I don't think that she missed completely the purpose of inviting someone. Yes. But let's analyze it together, okay? Because actually that is the most important thing of this part. In number 2, we have write the text with coherence, cohesion, and fluency. My recommendation, for example, is to try to revise in the national curriculum, in the English program, what is coherence? What is cohesion? What is fluency? What do they mean when they are talking about organizing ideas? What do they mean when they're talking about using appropriate language? Yes, and actually that will depend on your learning experience. Yes, here actually we have something very, very tiny, right? Because when we're talking about inviting someone to the party, I imagine that this person have been using, I would like to, we will have a great time, you know, but we are not sure about that because we have not seen the whole learning experience, right? We need to see the whole learning experience to identify that those elements closely. Yes, and then the grammar conventions, the spelling, is this right? Remember, spelling and grammar need to be focused on the purpose. If your purpose in that learning experience is students to learn present simple and the student has used past simple, it doesn't matter. Yeah, so that is why I am not sure about what is the final evaluation for Tabata. Yes, because remember, we need to understand the whole learning experience to see what is the target grammar, what is the target vocabulary. We don't have that information in here. Yes, so that is why we need to understand the whole thing to really create, to really design this this instrument, which will help us to evaluate I mean, big groups, right? Big groups. For example, here in my grammar, I inserted present simple and future with will, because it's like you're inviting someone, and in order to invite someone, you say, we will have a wonderful time, we will eat, we will, maybe, right? Maybe it's my target grammar, or maybe my target grammar is present simple, yes? As you are inviting someone, it's very awkward to use simple past for an invitation, right? I mean, not for a level A1. So as I was saying, that depends on your learning experience. That depends on what have you designed for your students, yes? So let's get back to Tabata, because I was like very interested in analyzing it with you. Yes, let's try to read Tabata's writing. I hope you can read it well. Let me see if I can I zoom it? I guess not, right? Okay, no, I cannot zoom it. But okay, let's try. I will read it again. It says, hello, Leonard. Let's see about adapt to the purpose. Yes. How is Canada? How is you? Last year, my mother cooked in New Year Eve. She cooked delicious. We has turkey, potatoes, vegetable, chocolate, chicha. I liked it, and my mom were happy. In 2019, we will have food, drinks, gift, music. Come visit me in New Year Eve. See you. Greetings from Peru. Okay. Actually, as I said before, there are many aspects we need to have it clear to give the right feedback. For example, if this student is an A1 and my target grammar is present simple, and the purpose is inviting someone to New Year Eve, I guess that the person, when the person is describing, we will have turkey, potatoes, is because he's trying to convince the person to come to my house, right? I mean, yeah, you know, if you come to my house, we will be buying pizza and some soda. I don't know, because I'm trying to persuade the person to come to my house, yes? So, as I said before, there are many different aspects that we need to have it in mind when providing feedback. If we're talking about an A2, and this student have fully, I mean, a full, it's like very clear for this student, the past simple, the present simple, and the aim was future. So then, yeah, definitely the right feedback might be number one, yes? But as I was telling you, that might depend on the level of the student, that will depend on your target, that would depend on your purpose, yes? Because when we design the purpose, we are also designing some language functions, some connectors, some pieces of grammar, yes? So based on that, we will, no, it's not correct. What is you? What is you? No, it's how is you is the question here in the text, but the question is how are you, right? Yeah, that is incorrect, definitely, yes? Okay, so remember, assessment, or in this case, feedback, which is a part of assessment, feedback is very important, but we need to have the whole picture, yes? If we don't have the whole picture, it's gonna be very difficult to really evaluate students appropriately, yes? So we need to design, we need to establish what is gonna be the purpose, the target grammar, the target vocabulary, the target chunks, expressions, yes? And based on that, we can make decisions correctly, yes? Okay, so I hope that the Excel is going to be our next discovered. Yes, we will be exploring a little bit more, because Excel will help us a lot on dealing with big groups to provide feedback. Yes, that was a little bit of the purpose of this session. Remember this, the most important element when giving feedback is the full understanding of the criteria. We need to understand that we are working on the competency-based approach. If we do not understand that the competency is integrating all the capacities, is integrating all the performances, and we are mutilating it, then we are not working with a competency-based approach. I mean, it's not only in our in our country, we're working with a competency-based approach, but I know that in most of parts of the world are working with a competency-based approach. So these tips are going to be useful for all of you. Yes. The next one is provide feedback to be useful by providing learning opportunities. Remember, when we provide strategies, techniques, some important ways for students then to do it or to use it by themselves, then we are promoting autonomy, which is a very important element for the competency-based approach. Yes, so remember this. Remember to provide techniques. Remember to provide a strategy. Reflective questions are very important tools. Feedback is not telling them what is right and what is wrong because they are not reflecting. We are not promoting critical thinking. They are not really analyzing what's going on when you say what is right. When you say this is wrong, this is right. No, you are supposed to help him by telling, this is right. Are you sure? Are you considering the auxiliary verbs? Are you sure that this verb is regular or irregular? Yes. So the idea is to provoke this curiosity to know what is wrong with my production. What is wrong with my performance? Yes. So remember that provide feedback and having this idea of learning opportunity is very encouraging, is very motivating instead of telling me this is wrong, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong. No. Yes. Critical question, reflective questions are very important. Provide some techniques, how to underline, how to organize ideas, you know. And remember to design standard instruments for giving feedback supported by technology. There are many important things we can use to organize this feedback. Just like a month ago, I guess I provide a webinar regarding how to use technology when we are evaluating students, but in a worksheet, right? And so we were creating some critical thinking questions in a worksheet, but in order, you know, like a taxonomy. Number one, level one, number two, level two. So as soon as the students start answering the Google form, you know, we can also have some input of how well they are doing this learning process. Yes. What is the level of them in this learning process? Yes. So remember that the good thing about this, as I was showing you, I just because I'm hiding here, as you can see here, I have different names. So probably I may have like all, of course, name and last name of all my students, maybe some more information. But what you can do is combine the cells and you can immediately insert the feedback that you have created previously. Yes, remember that you need to work on the descriptor previously as probably as collaborative work with teachers. You have it done, and then when you evaluate your student, you can immediately, okay, Tabata is number one. Okay, number one. Tabata is number two. Okay, number two. Tabata is number three. Okay, number three. And then you will have every single descriptor for all the elements. And when you provide feedback, you have all the elements as a feedback. I mean, the whole competency, no mutilated. Yes, no mutilated. So let me see. Okay, so and that's all. Remember, technology is a very useful tool. Today I have been using Excel because it's like very well known by all of us, and it's like very easy to use. There are many tutorials in YouTube for us to learn. Remember that autonomy is not only a way to learn for our students, but also for us. Many of us have learned a lot of digital tools during this pandemic on YouTube, right? Using tutorials, yes? So remember that, yes? It's gonna be quite useful to keep learning about technology to help and support our work and to make it with quality. I mean, to be effective, to make it on time, but with quality. Yeah, so that is a little bit of the idea of today. Yes, so Okay, I guess that's all. And now it's time for questions. I'm fine with the time. I was a little bit worried about the time. And I know that there are so many questions. So let's try to answer some of them today. Okay, so let's see.
Yeah, thank you so much, dear Kritel. It was awesome. A great presentation as usual, obviously. Teachers
Thank
are
you.
so happy because of your presentation. Now we are now going to begin answering the questions submitted during today's presentation. Mr. Rumi, can you read the questions for Mrs. Oyola, please?
Sure, my pleasure. Hi, one more time, Kritel.
Hi, Ruben.
Okay, we are going to start with the first question. Well, here we have the first one is, the question was made by Viviana Manzanedo. Well, she said a teacher shouldn't be afraid of correcting his students or her students, while it be very well oriented. So maybe can you give us any suggestions about any other suggestions when maybe the teacher is being afraid when giving feedback?
Okay. What's the name of the teacher? Sorry, Ruben. Can you repeat?
Viviana Manzanedo.
Vivi. I'm sorry. I'm always creating nicknames for people, so I'm sorry for that. It's my bad habit. Vivi, just remember that there is something important regarding feedback. Feedback is not related to correction. Yes, correction is. I would like you to keep in mind the way we when we were in school. I don't know if you are at my age, but when we were in the school, teacher on our homework used to write a check or cross with red pen. Yes, so that is correction. Correction is what the teacher says the student what this is wrong and this is the right answer. Yes, when we're talking about competency-based approach, what we want from a student is to analyze what might be wrong and how to discover what is the right answer, because that is part of the autonomy. And if you are afraid of correcting, that's great, because we are supposed to be afraid of correction. What we need to promote in our students is critical thinking. When you tell the student the answer, the student is not thinking. It's just a passive actor. It's assuming a passive role in their learning process. And if the teacher said that the answer is B, okay, it's B. And when you ask the student, why is it B? It's because you said it's B. And we don't want that from our students, something that when I am teaching other teachers, because I have the chance, sometimes they say, Miss, and what is right for this? So I don't know, you tell me, but you're the teacher. No, you tell me, I want you to think. And I can help you with some other sources to wrap all your ideas up, but I won't tell you the answer because I want you to analyze. I want you to deduce. I want you to reflect. So what is important in feedback? Create these critical thinking questions, these reflective questions. Yes. So if I know that the problem is that the student, instead of do, wrote does, so my question might be, are you sure that that is the correct auxiliary verb? I am somehow helping him or her to see what is the mistake without telling the mistake. What is the right answer? I'm not telling him or her. The student has to go to the grammar to see, okay, do I use it do with which one? I use does with which one? What are you using but in this case? You are using but to connect these two sentences. But when do you use but? Is this well used in this sentence? Why is the teacher saying me this? Okay, I need to revise. I use but, contrast. This is not contrast. It's the same idea. Okay, it's not bad, it's and. So when you provide this kind of questions, and if you notice, it's not that you are not helping the student. You are somehow helping the student, but without saying what is the final response. What is the final answer? Yes, because the idea is to promote critical thinking. And when we are talking about, for example, information in general, you can make some other questions. And something great about critical thinking is like, well, I know that in our country, English is like limiting the development of critical thinking in our area. Yes, but it does not mean that the student cannot really reflect deeper in Spanish. Yes, so what we need to do in that part is like training them with some chunks. Well, that is something that I usually say, right? Try to train your students with some chunks, but remember, do not correct students. Provide reflective questions, give some other sources for them to read. If the student is not using the chunks correctly, or is only saying, how are you, how are you, how are you, and you would like him or her to use some other phrases, so okay, here there is a video with some other examples. What else can you use? What else can you use? You know, so that is feedback. Is promoting in your students this reflection and this autonomy on their learning process. I hope I answered your question, Vivi.
Yeah, Kritel, I have questions about it. According to the national curriculum, there are some kinds of feedback. So it has a name. This is, you were talking about retroalimentación errónea o elemental when you say yes or not. Y entiendo que los otros dos tipos de retroalimentación, para de repente clarificar esta parte, Kritel, los otros dos tipos de retroalimentación que propone el currículo, que está dentro de las rúbricas de observación de una sesión, de una clase modelo, etcétera, en etapa de nombramiento, ascenso o en etapa de monitoreo, es el tipo de retroalimentación que el docente utiliza en el momento de la sesión. De acuerdo al currículo nacional, yo sé que estás muy empapada de eso, así que voy a aprovechar tu presencia ahora por esa misma razón. Quiero que quede completamente claro, por eso lo estoy mencionando en español. Tenemos los tres tipos de retroalimentación que propone el currículo, que es la retroalimentación elemental o llamada errónea por ellos, la retroalimentación descriptiva, y la retroalimentación por descubrimiento o reflexiva. En este caso, de acuerdo a lo que tú has mencionado, a todos los ejemplos mencionados, entiendo que en inglés es un tanto difícil, y esto no lo digo solo yo, ¿no? De repente también los maestros, los teachers que ahora mismo están conectados a este webinar, porque el tema de la retroalimentación para nosotros es un tema bastante... un poco difícil, la verdad, bastante difícil, porque es una barrera el dominio de la lengua del estudiante para poder llegar, por ejemplo, a hacer una retroalimentación, que es lo que se busca, como tú lo mencionabas, una retroalimentación reflexiva, o como lo dice el ministerio, por descubrimiento, que es el estudiante quien lo descubra y que el docente no esté dando las respuestas, ¿no? Porque existe la barrera del idioma. Creo que en español es mucho más fácil lograrlo. Los ejemplos que te he escuchado dar, quisiera yo saber dónde estarían ubicados, porque de acuerdo a lo que te mencionabas, el darle pistas, el decirle contrasta, el decirle, ok, but se utiliza, no se utiliza aquí, pero ¿por qué? ¿Recuerdas? Esto es, corresponde a una retroalimentación descriptiva. ¿O crees que este tipo de ejemplos este tipo de acciones o estrategias pueden lograr en el estudiante la retroalimentación reflexiva, que es la ideal o la que solicita el ministerio, pero que realmente en nuestra especialidad, en nuestro idioma, es un tanto difícil, creo yo?
Exacto. Marielita, en realidad es una muy buena pregunta la que estás haciendo. Y claro, no podemos vendarnos los ojos. Sabemos que el nivel de inglés en nuestras escuelas es bastante bajo y bueno, no es novedad para nadie, yo siempre lo he dicho, no podemos poner a inglés al mismo nivel que la lengua nativa, ¿no? ¿Por qué? Porque tal y cual siempre lo decimos, el nivel de inglés de nuestros chicos es muy limitante, no quiere decir que los chicos no sean pensadores reflexivos, ¿no? Simplemente que el limitante es el idioma. Pero aquí viene un punto bien importante y que, si bien es cierto, en el área de inglés todavía no lo están considerando mucho, pero creería yo que en unos cuantos años esto va a pasar. Los ejemplos que yo he venido dando es básicamente un nivel descriptivo, porque cuando hablamos de un nivel reflexivo, estamos hablando de preguntas mucho más grandes y mucho más abiertas, que van más del lado de la opinión personal del estudiante y de cómo el estudiante va descubriendo por sí mismo sus propias estrategias de aprendizaje. Ahora, es por eso tan importante, y te lo digo porque en algún momento, cuando era maestra y estaba en aula, yo la verdad lo hacía sin haberme dado cuenta que eso estaba pasando, pero fue bien interesante cuando en ese tiempo un amigo en común, que era mi jefe, entró a mi clase, observó, y algo que me hizo notar es que lo que yo había estado haciendo a lo largo de los meses con mi grupo de estudiantes es trabajar esta parte más o menos reflexiva con un poquito de chunks, ¿no? Yo sé que en muchas oportunidades hablo de los chunks y dirán, ¿por qué esta niña está tan entusiasmada y tan empesimismada en hablar de los chunks? Pero los chunks les permiten mucho a los chicos tener esta fluidez sin estar pensando en la gramática, en la estructura. Simplemente saben que ese chunk está referido, tiene ese propósito y lo utilizo cuando quiero hablar de este propósito, ¿no? Entonces, ¿qué pasó? Que yo hice preguntas descriptivas para los chicos, para temas muy específicos, porque el lado descriptivo habla de algo muy específico dentro del aprendizaje, pero la parte reflexiva ya viene más alineado a algo más grande, a algo más de reflexivo con respecto a las últimas capacidades que pide las competencias del área de inglés y de otras áreas también, y que en muchas ocasiones, y eso es algo que siempre los maestros me comentan, es como, es muy difícil, Kritel, pedirle a un estudiante de nivel A1 que me dé su opinión sobre algo. Y lo sabemos, es muy difícil, pero como siempre les digo, el nivel descriptivo es el que mínimamente deberíamos apuntar, pero eso no quiere decir que el reflexivo lo debamos dejar de lado. Andamiaje y dosificación es la mejor estrategia para eso. Entonces, si yo sé que mis estudiantes están en un nivel A1, entonces, claro, yo sé que ellos reflexivamente pueden llegar al nivel 7 en español, pero su nivel de inglés lo va a limitar. Entonces, ¿qué es lo que dice el currículo? A su nivel, ¿no es cierto? Al nivel en el que ellos están. Entonces, si yo les pido una opinión, yo les voy a preguntar, what do you think about this? Do you think this, is this similar in your house? ¿No? Una de estas preguntas donde son mucho más abiertas y el estudiante tiene que darte una retroalimentación, tiene que darte una respuesta. En estas respuestas, ojo, también hay retroalimentación porque puede ser que el estudiante te responda otra cosa. Puede ser que el estudiante, por temas de que no entendió la pregunta o porque no sabe cómo responderla, ¿no? Entonces, es ahí donde viene el trabajo insistente del maestro. Yo siempre les digo que los maestros estamos aquí en la carrera porque somos sumamente pacientes. El tema de entrenar a los chicos con estas estrategias de chunks, por ejemplo, para que ellos puedan después personalizarlo y en algún momento empezar a mezclar todos estos chunks para poder de alguna manera lograr cierto nivel reflexivo al querer opinar sobre algún texto, ya sea oral o ya sea escrito. Entonces, al momento que nos vengan a visitar al aula, eso se va a notar, porque va a ser bastante evidente que el estudiante ya está adquiriendo esos chunks como propios, porque ya los puede personalizar. Pero es un largo proceso, ¿no? Es un largo proceso. Entonces, nosotros deberíamos siempre trabajar estas partes reflexivas inicialmente con estos chunks, ¿no? Que nuevamente, todo proceso, todo tema que tiene que ver con aprendizaje no es algo que se logra en 2 meses. Eso lo sabemos todos los maestros. Puede demorar 1 año, puede demorar 2, pero si todos los maestros nos ponemos esa meta en nuestras sesiones de aprendizaje, de trabajar con estos chunks, estas partes reflexivas, este estudiante después de 1 año completo, después de 2 años, no va a tener tantas limitaciones para poder brindar su opinión. ¿Por qué? Porque lo hemos venido trabajando a lo largo. Yo no podría garantizar esto porque la verdad no estoy muy empapada de cómo son las evaluaciones dentro del aula de la DIET, pero sí entiendo que hay, digamos que un poco el nivel que ellos buscan en inglés, porque ya creo que se tiene una comprensión más clara que nosotros somos lengua extranjera y que la parte reflexiva se pide somehow para L2, que es español para quechohablantes, aymahablantes, ¿no? Nuestras lenguas originarias. Entonces a nosotros en realidad no nos piden tanto todavía estas preguntas reflexivas, pero eso no quiere decir que no vaya a suceder. Y como les decía hace un momento, este nivel requiere un trabajo muy anticipado. Entonces, como somos una comunidad English Teachers en Perú y entre todos nos tenemos que cubrir y entre todos nos tenemos que ayudar para demostrar a las personas del Minedu que estamos logrando realmente aprendizajes en nuestros estudiantes, deberíamos ya empezar a promover este tema de las reflexiones también en nuestra área curricular, ¿no? Que no es una tarea sencilla, va a ser una tarea a largo plazo, pero lo tenemos que hacer. Y para eso tenemos que entre todos coordinar, trabajar colaborativamente. Como les digo, todo el tema de evaluación es sumamente fundamental trabajarlo en equipo, porque ese estudiante que fue tuyo ahora es mío. Entonces es bien importante para mí saber cómo trabajaste tú el año pasado para poder encontrar las oportunidades, para poder encontrar las fortalezas y sobre eso seguir trabajando, porque la intención no es borrar y empezar de nuevo, es continuar, ¿no? Porque nuestros chicos estudian la básica regular, no estudian primero, segundo, tercero, A1, pre-2, pre-A1, no, estudian la básica, ¿no? Entonces, esa es un poco la intención de trabajar colaborativamente, ¿no? Acompañar al estudiante en todo el proceso de su aprendizaje, en este caso en secundaria, porque solamente formalmente enseñamos inglés en secundaria, ¿no?
Bien, Cris. Para cerrar de repente el tema lo voy a dejar a Rubén porque tiene ahí todavía algunas preguntitas más. Creo que aquí justamente lo mencionaba porque dentro de las rúbricas de observación de la clase en aula que utiliza el Ministerio de Educación, tanto para docentes nombrados como contratados y que los mismos coordinadores pedagógicos o coordinadores utilizan para acompañar o monitorear a los docentes, está las estrategias de retroalimentación, la retroalimentación que realiza el docente en aula. Y es una sola rúbrica para todas las áreas, ¿no? Ojalá que en algún momento se entienda que el enseñar el idioma, el enseñar el inglés es algo completamente diferente, ¿no? El puntaje varía de acuerdo al tipo de retroalimentación que das, ¿no? Entonces, si tú das, por ejemplo, obviamente una retroalimentación en ese momento era errónea, es decir, tú te equivocas incluso al dar la retroalimentación, estás en 0, es algo así. La retroalimentación elemental, que es el sí o el no, tiene un 1, algo así, la descriptiva un 2, y la reflexiva o por descubrimiento, que así se llama, tiene un 3, ¿no? Entonces, un docente de inglés difícilmente va a poder conseguir eso. Pero otro docente de cualquier otra área posiblemente sí, porque no tiene esa barrera del lenguaje que nosotros sí. Ojalá que eso se llegue a cambiar. Mientras tanto, hacer lo que tú nos has dicho, a seguir innovando, buscando estrategias, aplicando la estrategia que nos mencionas, me parece importante, el tema de las preguntas que generen reflexión, los chants que tienen que estar ahí en la parte, buscando la parte reflexiva del estudiante. Bien, ahora sí, Rubén, please continue.
Do not worry about it.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we all know it's a long process, and we thank you, Kritel, one more time for being here, clarifying many things, clarifying these really important things. Okay, now we have to continue with the questions our teachers in the community ask. We have one more question from Angie Wakcha Paz. She is asking, how can we make a reflective feedback in a listening activity, especially in a listening?
That's a very interesting question. Something that we need to remember, Angie, is that as we were just talking to Mariela, is that this reflective feedback is going beyond the understanding of the information presented, right? It's like we are asking students to kind of personalize the information we have received through listening. So before going to the level of reflection, my first recommendation might be to analyze first, to let the students to fully understand the audio, right? The oral text. That's a very important thing. And right after having this complete understanding of the text, then we can go beyond and ask these reflective questions. So once again, my recommendation always is like, actually the questions are not that different, right? So that is why I was like, telling them that we can work based on chunks, because chunks can be very useful for different pieces of information. If you are asking your student, is this similar in your family? So the student can like, oh, well, actually, I don't know, like, it's like, well, actually, this is like very similar to my family. Actually, this is not very similar to my family. Actually, this is very exactly the same as my family. As I was telling you at the beginning, it's going not to really be reflective questions, reflective answers, because they might be like very superficial responses at the beginning. So it's a matter of scaffolding to train students to first understand the questions, then to know how to relay the answers. So for this very first part of the learning experience, I can teach one question and 2 possible responses or 3 possible responses. And for the next learning experience, the same question with now 5 different responses. And, it's like, for example, to ask your students, what do you think about this? What do you think can be, I like it, I don't like it. I like it because it is, I don't like it because it is. I agree with the writer, I disagree with the writer because it is, because he says, because she says. Yeah, so we can use these chunks at the beginning and then try to complete these ideas in a very simple way, because they are probably a very low level, and little by little try to insert some more complex structures, right? I don't know if I can switch to Spanish to have the, I guess teachers can understand, but just as Marielita has turned into Spanish, now I'm thinking that maybe they are not understanding very well about these examples of chunks when you are doing this scaffolding process. Algo que tenemos que recordar muchísimo es que la parte reflexiva en nuestro idioma al inicio no va a ser reflexiva realmente, porque lo que vamos a hacer primero es entrenar a nuestros chicos al uso de chunks. O sea, eso es algo que tiene que quedar sumamente claro, porque en un primer nivel el estudiante todavía no va a poder reflexionar, porque seguro que el estudiante va a poder querer decir muchas cosas, pero todavía no las va a poder decir. Va a poder decir, me gustó porque estuvo interesante, me gustó o no me gustó porque estuvo aburrido, estoy de acuerdo con el escritor porque fue muy detallado. No lo sé, le enseñamos estos chunks donde ellos pueden cambiar simplemente los adjetivos o los sustantivos, ¿no? Y en un inicio, como les digo, este entrenamiento va a ser un entrenamiento bien básico, pero y algo muy importante de la evaluación, y es algo que la verdad muy pocos maestros nos damos el tiempo de profundizar, es la taxonomía. Ninguna parte de la taxonomía empieza desde el reflection, ¿no? Empezamos desde la parte de la base. ¿Y cuál es la parte de la base? Esta parte que es un poco más de memorizar, de copiar, ¿no? Que es esta primera parte de adquirir, digamos, estas frases, después irlas usando según el contexto, después yo las voy personalizando, después yo ya las voy usando intercaladamente, y después ya yo me lanzo y hasta hago Spanglish, ¿no? Porque llega un punto donde el chico se siente tan cómodo utilizando estos chunks que cuando algo no sabe le metes español e inventa, ¿no? Inventa algunas palabras y claro, al inicio es como gracioso en algún momento de la clase, pero cuando tú logras que tu estudiante, por no querer hablar español, invente una palabra en inglés, es porque hay progreso. Es porque el estudiante no quiere usar el español, quiere usar inglés y prefiere usar algo mal y tratar de deducir, ojo, esa palabra mágica que siempre la digo, está tratando de deducir cómo se podría decir en inglés a decirlo en español. Eso es un gran progreso. Entonces, recuerden mucho la taxonomía. La taxonomía son los procesos propios de aprendizaje de los estudiantes. Los estudiantes empiezan copiando. Yo siempre les digo, y lo decía mucho en Curriculum Design cuando hablábamos de las capacidades, que se imaginen a un niño aprendiendo español. Cuando un niño nace, lo primero que hace es escuchar, escuchar, escuchar. Y después, ¿qué hace? Repetir. Si la mamá le enseñó a decir teta, va a decir teta. Si le enseñó a decir biberón, va a decir biberón. Si la mamá le enseñó a decir leche, va a decir leche, ¿no? Y al inicio, la mamá le dice la frase completa, pero lo primero que va a decir el niño es tal vez solo la palabra que él ha captado, que él va adquiriendo, ¿no? Entonces, lo primero que hace el niño es como copiar lo que escucha. Y según el contexto lo usa. O sea, yo sé que si tengo hambre y digo teta, mi mamá me da la leche. Ok, digo teta, ¿no? Y eso es lo mismo que va a pasar cuando el joven está aprendiendo el inglés. Obviamente no a ese nivel. Pero si yo sé que mi maestra cuando me pregunta, what do you think about this? Ah, ya, entonces yo lo voy a relacionar con, well, I think it is because, ¿no? Entonces yo voy a relacionar esa pregunta con esa respuesta. Y lentamente, de a pocos, de manera dosificada, a modo de andamiaje, porque voy a empezar desde lo más sencillo hasta lo más complejo. Entonces yo de a pocos voy a irle dando al estudiante más input para que inicie este proceso reflexivo. Inicie, como les digo, siempre, y esto es bien importante, ¿ya? En un primer nivel, el estudiante, si bien es cierto, nosotros podemos lanzar estas preguntas reflexivas, las respuestas no van a ser reflexivas todavía, pero no, eso no quiere decir que lo debemos dejar de lado, ¿ya? Los tenemos que seguir siempre trabajando y hacerlo de manera dosificada, desde lo más sencillo hasta lo más complejo, ¿no? Eso va a ser un largo proceso. Con respecto al listening que estaba preguntando Angie, es exactamente lo mismo. Como les decía, los chunks nos sirven no solamente para dar una opinión sobre algún texto escrito, sobre alguna lectura, sobre algún audio, sobre algún video, cualquiera que sea el input, la misma pregunta podría servir, y esa es la ventaja de este tipo de preguntas, ¿no? Que la podemos usar en diferentes tipos de competencias, en diferentes tipos de medios. Esa es un poco la ventaja, ¿no? Estoy tratando de leer todo lo que escriben, pero están escribiendo tantas cosas, no sé, Mariela, si te pasa a ti también, pero no alcanzo a leer porque quiero leer y ya se pasó a los siguientes. Pero me encanta que sean tan curiosos y que estén comentando tanto, es buenísimo.
Es que realmente este es un tema bastante importante para nosotros y
Sí.
no es tan fácil de trabajarlo debido bueno, a la especialidad misma. I have a question here for you, dear Kritel.
Okay,
In
tell me,
your
Mariela.
presentation, you give us some feedback strategies, and you mentioned that we have to make use of technology.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe as teachers, we know some strategies or maybe digital tools that we can use with our students, but what happens with our students if they don't have a good internet connection? It's difficult for them to use technology. What is your suggestion in this case?
Okay, but we're talking about two different things.
Okay.
One is the use of technology for teachers when creating these rubrics,
Okay.
this assessment. Yes, so that is why I was using Excel, because it's not online, you know, it's offline.
Okay.
So you can create it. If you want to work collaboratively, yeah, you need to use probably a drive, an Excel sheet probably. Yeah, so you can work together with some other teachers and create together this.
Okay.
When we're talking about students, that's another different thing, right? We need to understand that I always said that there are some different kinds of competences, right? Competences for teachers and competences for students.
Okay.
I mean, unfortunately, and I will always say this because we teachers feel terrible when our students cannot develop digital digital competences, especially in this context, especially in the fourth revolution. It's like surprisingly, I mean, shocking, I might say, that they cannot have this access, right? It's very frustrating, but unfortunately, there are not many things we can do about it. And that is something we need to understand. And I am very happy that some other communities are talking about these things, because these frustrations that sometimes teachers have affect our personal life, our health, you know. But we teachers are very committed. We teachers love our students, but we are human beings.
Yeah.
All the time, the government have said to us that we are superheroes, but we are not superheroes. We are superhuman beings because we are totally committed to our students and to our families and to our society, but we are not superheroes. We cannot solve all the problems in our communities. So I know that that is a totally different topic, but there are different strategies for different groups. If your students have the conditions, take advantage of it, because that is a way for them to give them the opportunity to develop these digital competences. But if they don't have the conditions, you can do your very best for your student to receive somehow of learning, you know, in the area, but you are not supposed to expose yourself. You also have a family. So this is my personal opinion, please. This is my personal opinion. But if we are during pandemic, I mean, we're in a pandemic, we're in quarantine, we're not supposed to force our teachers to go to other houses to solve problems that are of our hands, because it's others people's responsibilities. Yes. So if your student is not in the best conditions, try to do your very best. But remember that you are a human being. You need to take care for you. You need to take care for your family. You are not supposed to expose your family and yourself. Even you love your career and your profession so much. Everything has a limit, because you are human beings. We are not superheroes. We are super teachers, superhuman beings, but not superheroes. Yes. So yeah.
Yeah, okay, yes, I agree. And I suppose that that's why Minedu works only two skills, two competences, because it's difficult to work with the with a listening skills or speaking skills when you have this kind of problems with your students.
Definitely.
No, the internet connection, about the internet connection. Yeah. Now, Ruben, continue, please.
Great. Yeah, but also we have to remember that there are teachers who are trying and they are doing their best to, you know, to focus on speaking and listening. And we have to congratulate them also. Okay, the last question, Kritel, maybe we have some minutes.
Yeah, for sure.
The question comes from Roger Hernandez. He says, we must give feedback. It's clear that we must give feedback about the whole competency, but what about the reflective performance? Could you explain a little how to make your students achieve this goal?
Okay, Roger, I guess that I mean, that is kind of answer already. You know, because
yes.
Marielita,
I'm sorry.
we have been just talking about. Yes.
I was confused. I'm sorry, Kritel. Yes.
Do not worry, Rubencito.
Yes, the question was here from Jaren Fiestas. I'm sorry. Yeah, I have a question. It is true that we should cover all the capacities, but what about the learning performances? Should we cover them all? If not, how many should we cover?
That's a very interesting question, because I am wondering, and that is a reflective question. I am wondering where the learning performances come from. I mean, they come from where? It's not like they pop up out of nothing, right? They have a source. Yes, and that is something that you need to keep in mind. When we're talking about the competence have a description. And the description of the competence are the standards according to the level, right? And when we're talking about grades, we have the descriptors in the performances, but the performances respond to the capacities. So all the performances are related to the capacities. When we're talking about performances, we're talking about capacities are the descriptor. So that is why during the webinar, I was explaining you that you can use these descriptors to be inserted in your rubric, because that is part of the description of the capacity. It has more details. It has the progressive elements, you know. So remember, performances is given to you the description of the capacity in the grade. Yes, so if you are revising first grade performances, you are reading the description of the capacities for first grade. If you are reading the performances for fifth grade and secondary, so you are reading the description of the capacities for first grade. So that is the magic relation. So if, Jaren, if you know that you need to cover all the capacities to achieve the competence, that means that you need to cover all the learning performances to achieve the competence. Yes, that's very important. Remember that that is a description. Performances is a description of the capacity. They are totally connected. Yes, you are not supposed to divide them. Yes, this is a description.
Okay. Now, dear Kritel, it's a very, very interesting question. Please pay attention. Says, Karina Cardenas Vidales. Yeah, yes. She says, Miss Kritel, talking about this topic, time is not enough. So it means second part. Do you agree? Yes or not?
What do you this to Mariela? We're friends, you know. Okay, well, it's something that I mean, it's very hard for me, and Mariela knows that. It's very hard for me that I have to admit that I was telling you that we are human beings. We want to be superheroes, but we are not superheroes. We're human beings. My Fanglishers knows. My Fanglishers know that I'm like crazy these days, and it's just because I'm doing many different projects. I hope I can share it with you soon, but let's see a second part, but not that soon, because I'm going to be very busy this month. Yes, but yeah, for sure, definitely. And I know, I don't know if I can say this, but I am like launching a new course for Fanglish assessment, but I'm sorry to say that I know that some people are feeling not good about this, but as you can see, assessment, it's a very complicated topic. It's very complex. So that is why one of the requests to be part of the course is to have taken a previous course in Fanglish, because I know that my Fanglishers know about capacities, performances, you know. So that is why it's like, you need to be a Fanglisher to take this new course, and we only are accepting 25 people in the course, no more. It's very close because it's like one-to-one, and but I am sure that in the middle of the course, I might probably have a little more time, because I will be like having all my material totally finished and my videos totally finished. And I'm sure that I will ask Mariela, now I'm ready. I have time. Yeah. And we will have a second part. Pinky promise, you know that I love being here with all of you.
Thank you so much. You said pinky promise.
Pinky promise. Yeah, I know. Okay. If I say yes, I say yes.
Ok, thank you so much, dear Kritel. Realmente quiero agradecerte porque yo sé que tienes muchos proyectos, que llevas diferentes responsabilidades, pero siempre te das un pequeño espacio para poder compartir con nosotros y nunca le has dicho no a nuestra comunidad. Realmente estoy agradecida con todo el corazón por ese ser maravilloso que eres, por todo lo que inspiras en nosotros comunidad y porque siempre que te tenemos, pues clarificamos muchas dudas y creo que mejoramos mucho como docentes y reflexionamos, que es algo que tú promueves y créeme, no sé si tú misma te des cuenta, pero lo logras con nosotros para empezar. Entonces, si tú lo puedes hacer, nosotros te iremos imitando para tratar de hacerlo también con nuestros estudiantes. Te voy a pedir que te quedes unos minutitos más, por favor, para la foto final de tu.
Me quedo. Pinky promise.
Ya, ok.
Entonces, no me despido, solo apago mi cámara.
Yeah. Bien, continuamos entonces, ahora sí, con la invitación para la siguiente semana, en la que vamos a terminar con este ciclo de webinar, pero atentos porque se viene un proyecto muy bonito para poder apoyarlos, para poder seguir fortaleciendo. Ya vamos a conversar la próxima semana, se nos ha pasado bastante el tiempo porque la conversación está súper interesante. Vamos a ver, para aquí tenemos a Miss Zully, are you there? Rubén.
I'm here.
Yeah, okay, please. Kev, so sorry, Kev. Yeah. Invite our audience, please.
Muy contentos por el webinar de Miss Kritel. Para la siguiente semana, para el día viernes 9 de julio, tenemos a Ashley Palco con el tema Innovando con las salas de espera, que va a ser transmitido a través de YouTube, como vemos, de 7 de la noche hasta que culmine el webinar. Y ahora está allí Sulamita, quien va a presentar pues al siguiente ponente para este sábado. Sulamita, te escuchamos.
Zuli.
Micro, Miss.
All right, thank you. I am here. Now, and for the next Saturday, we will have an amazing webinar about methodology. The topic is the do's and don'ts of ELT, looking at the research and best practices. It will be presented by Leonardo Mercado on Facebook Live of our community. Saturday, July 17th, yes, at 7 p.m. Don't forget, please, we will be waiting for you. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, my mistake, so sorry. The dates. Las fechas están mal, van a disculpar, el apuro es para el próximo sábado que estamos culminando con Mr. Leonardo Mercado, Miss Ashley, que también lo mencionó que va a estar, y en este caso con Mr. Leonardo Mercado, que también va a revisar el tema de diferentes casuísticas que de repente se encuentran justamente en esos exámenes del ministerio, viendo la forma de utilizar la metodología correcta del docente, ¿no? Con respecto a diferentes métodos y enfoques que se enseñan en el área. Bien, entonces tenemos esto para la próxima semana y ahora sí compartimos con ustedes el exit ticket. Miss Pamela.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here with us. Well, Miss Marie, we have now the exit ticket. Remember that this will be available for 15 minutes. I'm going to spell it in Spanish to be easier for you. HTTPS CUT.ly/ con mayúscula ET, minúscula I, P mayúscula, ¿no? ETiP, the English Teachers in Peru, 12, ¿no? Because it's our 12th webinar today. Remember to fill in correctly with your personal information, because you have to answer also some questions, and the material will be given to your email that you fill in here. Thank you very much. dear Miss Mary. Thank you everybody for being here.
Thank you, dear Pamela. Okay, so it's time to say goodbye. No sin antes reconocer, como siempre, el arduo trabajo que realiza todo el equipo de administradores de nuestra comunidad de English Teachers in Peru, a cada uno de ellos que están en diferentes regiones de nuestro país, a Miss Nefti, que se encuentra en España, que es parte importante de la comunidad también, y a quien en este momento no está en presencia, pero sí creo su corazón siempre va a estar con nosotros. Miss Tabitha Naya, cada uno de ustedes, querido equipo, muchísimas gracias por todo su apoyo. Sin ustedes la comunidad no sería lo que es, y por supuesto que sin ustedes, teachers, tampoco. Nosotros realmente aprendemos muchísimo de cada cosa que ustedes comparten, de sus dudas, de sus certezas, y sin los ponentes como el día de hoy nos ha acompañado Kritel, que tienen esa bondad y esa apertura a poder compartir con nosotros, sin nada más a cambio que nuestro agradecimiento sincero, pues creo que con todo eso la comunidad se hace mucho más grande todavía. Bien, ahora sí, encendemos nuestras pantallitas. ¿Te escapaste, Cris? No, ¿verdad?
No, acá estoy. He cumplido, yo cumplo. ¡Hola, Su!
Muy bien. Ahora sí es momento de decir adiós, no sin antes, por último, dar el agradecimiento a nombre de todo el equipo administrativo de English Teachers in Peru, de todos los teachers que conforman la comunidad. Hoy ha habido más de 500 docentes conectados. Tienes tus fans definitivamente, Cris. Que te siguen donde vayas y con toda la razón del caso. Realmente siempre es un gusto escuchar tus webinars, siempre es un gusto aprender de ti. Muchísimas gracias. Ya estás comprometida, no lo olvides. Dijiste.
I know.
Promise. Entonces, gracias por tanto, Kritel. Muchísimas gracias de parte de toda la comunidad de English Teachers in Peru. ¿Algunas palabritas para despedirte?
Bueno, solamente comentarles que particularmente para mí es muy grato siempre participar en esta comunidad. Primero, Mariela lo sabe, yo admiro mucho cuando son los maestros los que logran lo que ustedes están logrando. Es la manera más evidente de demostrar que los maestros somos agentes de cambio, ¿no? Y que no tenemos límites cuando queremos lograr algo. El trabajo en conjunto, colaborativo, respetuoso, destacando las fortalezas de cada uno de nosotros y la diversidad que puede haber en este equipo administrativo es lo que suma y lo que lo hace más potente porque hace que se complementen de la mejor manera. Para mí siempre diré que es un honor que me consideren siempre para los webinars, es un honor que siempre me inviten, me convoquen, porque al interactuar con los maestros me permite también saber cuáles son sus necesidades, cuáles son sus intereses, por dónde debo ir leyendo un poquito más, por dónde debo de ir aprendiendo un poquito más, así que yo siempre voy a decir que cada interacción con ustedes, la comunidad en general, entre los administradores y los maestros que nos acompañan, es de mutuo aprendizaje. Así que gracias por siempre permitirme estar acá. Es para mí siempre un honor. Mira, yo me peino para ustedes, Su sabe mis fachas desfachescas, ¿no? Yo les agradezco muchísimo siempre el espacio y a seguir aprendiendo. Recuerden que esas libertades que siempre pedimos como maestros, la autonomía en el aula, merece de nosotros mucha responsabilidad. Entonces, a seguir mejorando como maestros, a tomar decisiones mucho más pedagógicas en base a la literatura, nuestras buenas experiencias y a seguir aprendiendo. Let's keep learning, como siempre les digo a mis maestros.
Muchísimas gracias, querida Kritel. Bien, el día de hoy nos despedimos. He estado con ustedes Miss Sulamita Chupten, Miss Pamela Salazar, Teacher Kevin Laura de la Cruz, que está bien concentrado, espero que esté viendo el webinar.
Pura seriedad.
Sí. Teacher Rubén Rumi, muchísimas gracias, Rubén. Teacher José Ortega, que está detrás de toda la transmisión y está organizando todo, siempre ahí apoyándonos. Gracias, Teacher José. Y por supuesto, nuestra queridísima Kritel Oyola. Nos despedimos, teachers. Bye, bye.